I want to welcome you to this service, Unitarian Universalist service. I'm the Reverend Dr. Meredith Garmon, coming to you from One Earth Retreat Center. I am upstairs in the Zendo, and LoraKim is downstairs in the Abbot's quarters. And we're glad to have you with us. Glad to have you watching later on YouTube. We'll begin with a chalice lighting. And these words. We light this chalice in recommitment to the path of the Spirit. This is not a path to become someone else, nor to reach some higher state. It is a path of giving ourselves, always already whole, ever more fully to what is always already here. It is not a path to make ourselves worthy, but to standing less in the way of the wholeness we are. It is not a ladder to climb, but a way of standing still long enough for life to meet itself. It is not to fix ourselves, for we are not broken, not to master life, but to be available to it, not to meet a need, but to show up, to let each moment tell us what it needs, not to grow wiser, but to allow our wisdom to function less obstructed and to become transparent to what we already know about how to live.
Hi there, I'm the Reverend Dr. LoraKim Joyner. As Reverend Garmon said, I am downstairs. I'm not outside today because we're just a little bit cold, a little bit of a winter storm. Well, let's do our bird note for the day. What's going on with birds in your area and in general? I want to celebrate the sandhill cranes this month and really peaking in February and March. Along the Platte River, the sandhill cranes are gathering 500,000 to 1 million as they gather up and feed up as they go on their spring migration to return north. These are mostly the lesser sandhill crane. Now, we got to see them when we lived in Iowa. We did a crane spiritual trip there to see them. They're the oldest living bird species on the planet, and their flights and their calls, well, we were suitably awed. And just a couple of weeks ago, I saw hundreds of them in northern Florida. These are mostly the greater sandhill crane. They're bigger, but there could have been some smaller Florida sandhill cranes mixed in with them. And only about 30 miles south from where we are here in South Carolina, in Fairfield County, there are sandhill cranes there as well. I hope that one day you get to see them on their long journey home, as you hear them high in the clean blue air heading home, announcing harsh and exciting over and over again your place in the family of things. We, like the cranes, are on a long journey, challenging our hearts as we experience the depths of human nature. I wonder if your journey has been like Marlowe's, who was a character in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Marlowe went deeper and deeper into the Congo looking for Kurds and saw the tragedy of humanity all around him. Do you travel similarly, looking not for Kurds, but for hurts? Do you, like Marlowe, see the darkness of the human soul as we subjugate others, fall prey to illness and death, and strip and injure the land to gain wealth? But even Marlowe, as he went deeper and deeper into darkness, he saw beauty all around him in the jungle. The messiness and the complexity of human nature is like a jungle, and it's beautiful. So perhaps in your heart, you see instead lightness. You can imagine, feel the beauty of yourself connected to the beauty around, a woven fabric of life that lifts you up no matter the burdens. What is in your heart today? Darkness, which we can call fear. Perhaps you feel lightness, which I call love, because some things are just going right now. You feel the beauty. We know of darkness and we know of life. Light, we know fear, and we know love. We have some choice about which we allow to fill our heart, such as in this poem by Jean Latimer. There is a moment in time when the soul chooses love over fear. It may take eons to reach that point, but when it comes, it sweeps away all distrust, all suffering, and judgment. We can prepare for it by practicing some simple techniques. We practice feeling everything so that when love comes, we feel it fully. We practice mindfulness so that when love comes, it is sustained by the discipline of choice, not to indulge the small mind's need to negate and judge. We practice embracing that which we hate, our diseases, addiction, and troubles, so that love is felt fully. Then the moment of love comes and sweeps us away. Let's look at Latimer's simple techniques. The first one is practice feeling everything so that when love comes, we feel it fully. That's not so easy. One spiritual teacher of mine, Marshall Rosenberg, who founded nonviolent communication, once told me that life isn't about feeling comfortable, it's about feeling everything. We feel everything, not so to live in a maelstrom of overwhelming emotions, but actually, in fact, to ease our emotions so we can choose love over fear. One way to be present to our feelings is by cultivating our emotional intelligence, which is being curious about what we're feeling and needing, instead of pushing uncomfortable feelings away. So to grow our curiosity, we ask, what are we feeling and needing now? We're trying to get away from those mind loops that are telling a story about what's going on in our body. And if we do this, it can help calm down the parts of our brains where a lot of the emotions go through, such as the amygdala in the limbic system. We want to make new pathways where we have some choice over the sensation of what we put together in our brains for the body sensations of feelings. So let's just practice today. Let's practice now. Let's just take a deep breath, which is calming in itself. And let's do a body scan. What is that? Well, what's going on in your body from your head to your toes? What is your body feeling? What are your perceptions? What is your level of excitement or arousal, your emotional state? Is it low, medium, high, neutral? Are you trying to move towards satisfaction or away from harm? Maybe it's a mix, all right? Maybe you've got hunger going on, so you want to move towards satisfaction, and maybe you've got fast heart rate because of anxiety. So there's lots of things going on. Try to find a word that encapsulates what is going on in your body, what you are experiencing. Are you afraid, anxious, hungry, content? By making a practice of translating our daily experiences into feelings and needs, we give the chance to be present now to our needs now, even when our needs cannot be met or the needs of others can't be met. It connects us to life now. In short, this spiritual practice would be translate everything into feeling and needs. Latimer's second technique is practice mindfulness so that when love comes, it is sustained by the discipline of choice, not to indulge the small mind's need to negate and judge. Mindfulness allows us more choice. Thinking of what we feel and need is one way to bring awareness and mindfulness to the current moment. By doing this, we gain some choice of how we feel and how we feel and think about others. What we're trying to do is move away from a story of blame. Now, this is not to say that that has a place or we don't need to hold ourselves and others accountable. But what we want to try to do is shift the story to the present moment. And it can be hard to move away from blame and judgment because we all have experienced in our own lives harm and societal structures of harm and domination and oppression. We've all been harmed and caused harm and have experienced dysfunctional social groups, even in places where we least expect it, with our families and friends and in church. One Sunday morning, a partner was shaking their spouse and said, "Get up, honey, get up. You're going to be late for church." And the partner said, I don't want to go to church. People don't like me. They're mean to me. The sermons are boring. Why should I go? And his partner responded, "Because you're the minister." As a minister, and also as a conservationist, and even just as a human, I experienced discomfort and have been blamed and wanted to blame others. But over the years, by trying to be present to the feelings and needs now, I experience a little less judgment, a little more patience to be with others, and also wonder that people can be as compassionate and kind as they are in a world of such harshness and tragedy. Third and last, Latimer says, practice embracing that which we hate, our diseases, our addictions, our troubles, so that when love is felt holy, so that love is felt holy, so that when the moment of love comes, we are swept away. Yikes. Does this mean we must embrace cancer, dementia, death? That's going to take a lot of practice. So where can we do this? Now, everywhere, and every moment. For no matter the tragedy, beauty and wonder is ever present. As Martin Luther King said, without the darkness, we could not see the stars. Darkness and light are always with us. But even if we can't see them, the stars are always shining. And so are you. And so is our kind and our kin. At any one given moment, we might want to shy away from having our lives intertwined with others. We struggle to see their worth. Maybe we don't feel the kindness and the connection and the beauty. And also, that doesn't mean that beauty isn't staring you right in the face everywhere you turn. Just look up at the stars and know you belong, for the earth gave rise to you. Unless you're of primarily recent African ancestry, 1.5 to 2.5% of your DNA is from our Neanderthal ancestors. And this maybe averages out to about 2% for all humans. And 50% of your genes have recognizable counterparts sequences in bananas. So there you are, with about 2% of your genome inherited from Neanderthals who lived 50,000 years ago, and half of your genes shared with something you might put in a smoothie. That is so beautiful. That's rocking it. You are so beautiful. Don't you think it's time we started acting like it? Well, here's the trick. One of the many tricks, actually. Practicing can't be done alone. There is too much out there against it. We backslide. We lose faith. We need people around us who are committed to the same goals. To change our communities, we need to shift entire organizations and institutions. Well, that's a big ask. But social sciences tells it only takes about 20% of a group to change, and then the whole group changes. That's 1 in 5. So let's keep finding the 1 in 5 we need to align with to transform our world. Spiritual practice can change us in the world. This journey is long to rewire our brain and to reformat our culture. But change can also happen in a heartbeat. Look into your own heart. Just take a moment and take in who you are. Don't think, just feel, just be. Sure, there's some darkness in there. And maybe like Marlowe, you whisper, oh, the horror, the horror. But there's also spacious light, and there's room for others. As Emerson said, there's a great deal more kindness that can never be spoken. The heart knoweth.
LoraKim highlighted 3 techniques for training ourselves in the choosing of love over fear. Feel everything, practice mindfulness, embrace what we hate. And then she said, practicing can't be done alone. So, how do you train yourself with others to develop the habit of feeling everything, being mindful, embracing even what you dislike? Do you have a spiritual practice? How can you tell whether some activity of yours is actually a spiritual practice as opposed to just something you do? Quilting or playing a musical instrument or hiking or gardening, those are all good for you. They're creative outlets, they're connecting with nature. They might or might not qualify as full-on spiritual practices in themselves, but they could be. And even where they aren't, they are healthy parts of a well-rounded life, including spiritual life. To be a spiritual practice rather than just something you do, some points to bear in mind. First, collapse the distinction between means and end. A spiritual practice is not a means to an end. The practice itself is the end. The practice doesn't lead to feeling everything mindfully. Rather, the practice, if it's a spiritual practice, simply manifests feeling everything mindfully. Practice is expressive rather than instrumental. It expresses your spiritually integrated and grounded self rather than being an instrument for a desired result. Not a means to an end. Practice is the end. 13th century Japanese spiritual teacher Dogen emphasized the practice is the awakening. So if you're not enjoying the practice in the moment that you're doing it, then it won't lead to anything later that you will enjoy. Second, relatedly, is the relationship to time. If you're thinking in terms of means and ends, then your focus is on temporal sequence. First I do this work, and later I reap the consequence. But collapsing the means-end distinction changes your relationship to time. You begin to apprehend that all of time is fully expressed in each moment, as the whole universe ultimately has gone into making each individual object in it. Time, then, is not something you exist in, but something you are. Third, nothing special. Also, along with collapsing the means-end distinction comes the appreciation that there is no special state called being enlightened to attain. Your ordinary, everyday practice is it. Waking up, brushing your teeth, cooking, cleaning, eating, going to the toilet. That's as sacred and holy as it gets. The practice is a matter of attunement, not transcendence. Attuned to the ordinary flow of ordinary life, rather than transcend to some special or higher plane. There's a Zen saying, ordinary mind is the way. Those are 3 aspects of a spiritual practice. The means is the end, All of time is each instant, and the sacred is the ordinary. There is nothing to attain. There's just your life, just as it always has been, to better appreciate. And let me talk about that, because better appreciating does make a difference. As LoraKim said, spiritual practice can change us and this world. Years of committed spiritual practice do tend to change a person. It's just that this change isn't progress toward anything. It isn't gaining something new, but rather it's the ongoing clarification, refinement, and the unobstructed functioning of what has always been so. Unobstructed functioning. You have already had times in your life when you experienced this. And in that sense, practice doesn't bring anything new. You've had times when you weren't reacting against anything, when things seemed to flow, when you weren't dividing everything in your life into obstacles to your purposes and potential tools to help your purposes. You were relaxed, ready for and open to whatever might come next. You were attuned to the world rather than at work at bending the world to your will. But then obstructions arise. Clinging, resistance, judgment of people and things as good or bad, liked or disliked, attachments and aversions. Those are obstructions. Unobstructed functioning isn't new for you, but through spiritual practice, it tends to happen more and more. It starts to become habitual. We have had moments when the ego was decentered, when we weren't filtering everything through the lens of whether it gratified or thwarted the ego's wants. Through practice, decentering the ego becomes a move we more readily make. Long practice does not eliminate greed, anger, or confusion, but changes how they function. They no longer organize your life in the same way. They aren't the obstructions that they used to be. Over time, practice yields finer attunement to conditions, quicker responsiveness, less delay caused by self-protective narratives. Actions become more precise, responses more appropriate, care more natural, less friction, less forcing. Long practice produces less need to defend views, less fixation on my understanding, greater willingness to be corrected by circumstances. The first technique LoraKim mentioned was feel everything. But we're afraid of some feelings. They make us uncomfortable. Spiritual practice cultivates a willingness to keep showing up without guarantees, to keep showing up for other people without needing them to fit our expectations, and keep showing up for our own feelings without needing them to be comfortable. Practice changes us, not by making us enlightened, but by making our inherent awareness more functional, more responsive, less obstructive, more available, more intimate with conditions. This is ongoing, never complete, inexhaustible. The mission is never accomplished. Obstructions do not fall away because we remove them. Rather, they fall away because they're no longer being fed. And as we spend time in an intentional spiritual practice, not feeding our obstructions, then they begin to fall away more often throughout our daily life, not just during times dedicated to spiritually practicing. So, what is your spiritual practice? Watercoloring, or writing poetry, or bird watching, or yoga? To make these activities into spiritual practices rather than just something you do, I have 3 suggestions. First, adopt some base practices to establish a foundation of spiritual openness. There are 3 base practices: silence, journaling, and study. Spend some time every day being still and quiet, just bringing attention to your own amazing breathing. Journal daily about your spiritual life, particularly your gratitudes, your hopes, your experiences of awe. And study. Read what is called wisdom literature, the essays of Pema Chodron or Thomas Merton, the poems of Rumi or Mary Oliver, the Tao Te Ching, the Bible's book of Psalms, just to mention a very few examples of wisdom literature. Silence, journaling, study. Second, engage the activity with mindfulness. Focus on the activity as you do it with sharp awareness of each present moment. Bring awareness to your body as you do the activity. Third, form or join a group. As LoraKim said, practicing can't be done alone. At least some of the time you do the activity, do it with a group that gathers expressly to do the activity in a way that cultivates spirituality, sharing each other's spiritual reflections before, during, or after doing the activity together. Establish a foundation with silence, journaling, and study. Engage with mindfulness. Join or form a group. Why? Not to gain anything, but simply to be who you are, who you always have been. Thank you for your practice. Amen. And now we will extinguish our chalice with these words. We extinguish this flame and place our trust not in this moment alone, but in the moments that follow. May the world itself be our teacher. May each encounter verify what we practice. The light extinguishes here, but the lessons continue everywhere.
I would like to do some announcements now about what's going on at One Earth Retreat Center, and then we're going to follow this up with a conversation, checking in on how we're doing, and also some questions that we could pose for the group to talk about. So let's see what some of our announcements might be. One thing to remember is that we have Zen and Bird. These are in-person retreats. Next one is just coming up next weekend. And also we have one in February. Please do get in touch with us if you would like to come here and be with us. We also have, you could just design your own retreat. And this is in South Carolina. We're doing a special retreat, healing ourselves as we heal the world through unconditional solidarity. It's going to be combining Zen and nonviolent communication practices, which a lot of my homily was based on today, and this will be in June. Again, please contact us and register. And then every week we have online events. I lead a sunrise birding for life. It means getting up early and watching the sun come up as we watch birds, and have one of those, the nature practices with community, as Reverend Garmon was saying. And then Meredith, Reverend Garmon, also has almost every day a Zen practice regular online as well as in the morning.